Let's just take a look at this issue here with President Trump, because, I mean, that's a pretty boisterous statement there. This is similar to some of the things he said before attacking in Nigeria not long ago, when he said that, these attacks on Christians don't stop, he was going to take action. And then he did lob some missiles, at least into a field. I don't know if it actually accomplished anything, but he did do something after that. Now, this is coming just a couple of days after he met with Bibi Netanyahu, who came to Mar-a-Lago and said this.
Now I hear that Iran is trying to build up again, and if they are, we're going to have to knock them down. We'll knock them down. We'll knock the hell out of them, but hopefully that's not happening. I heard Iran wants to make a deal. If they want to make a deal, that's much smarter. They could have made a deal the last time before we went through, a big attack on them, and they decided not to make the deal. They wish they made that deal. So I think, again, they should make a deal. They want to make a deal, but sometimes that doesn't happen.
We're going to knock them down, John. We're just going to knock them down again, like it's just some kid knocking some building blocks over. What do you make of that?
Well, when it comes to Iran, the first thing you have to understand is that the Israelis and the Israel lobby in the United States basically own Trump. And whatever they want to do, Trump has to go along. But at the same time, Trump's basic modus operandi is to talk tough, but use a little stick. He uses military force a lot, but it has no real effect. And he is purposely avoiding getting us dragged into another forever war. And if you look back to when we attacked Iran on June 22nd of last year, that's June 22nd, 2025, it was basically a one-off. One day we attacked, we declared that we had won a decisive victory and said that's the end of the story. So you see that Trump is willing to use military force against Iran, but he's very wary of getting dragged into a fight. And you see this in all sorts of other instances as well. You just described what he did in Nigeria. He talked tough on Nigeria, but in the end, he did hardly anything, lobbed a few missiles into a field. Now, he is saying with regard to Iran today in his post that if they kill any protesters, we're going to slam them. But the fact is they've already killed 7 protesters. So what is he going to do about that? And what if they kill 2 more tomorrow? What is he going to do about that? Is he going to get us involved in a serious war? No, he may lob a few missiles at them, but nothing more than that. So I think he has to placate Prime Minister Netanyahu. He has to tell Netanyahu what Netanyahu and Netanyahu's supporters want to hear. Because again, they basically own Trump. He's not an America first president. He's an Israel first president. But at the same time, he doesn't want to get us involved in a big war. So these, in a very important way, are empty words.
So now, I mean, I think you can certainly make the case that he's trying to placate Netanyahu, but I mean, Netanyahu, you can placate the American public and certainly some of the MAGA by claiming to be tough and then showing some of these like Nigeria. Yeah, we're defending the Christians, whatever, even though when you look on the ground, it really didn't do anything. According to some reports, it literally killed no one, blew up nothing, but hit a field. So it certainly didn't deter anybody from anything, but it looks good. And few people actually bother to find out whether it hit anything or not. It just looks like he's tough. That works for them. But with Netanyahu, this kind of stuff, just lobbing a few missiles in there, which doesn't cause any change of the conditions, doesn't seem like that would be enough. Would Netanyahu be placated by that?
No, there's no question that Netanyahu will go to great lengths to get Trump to unleash the dogs, to really go after Iran big time. And when he recently visited the White House, Netanyahu, that is, Trump came out and made it clear that he's not only concerned about Iran rebuilding its nuclear capabilities, but now he's saying that Iran cannot rebuild its ballistic missile capabilities or increase its ballistic missile capabilities. And then again today, he's saying that if the Iranian government shoots any of the protesters, that we will use force against them. So Trump, at least rhetorically, is upping the ante. He's now got 3 criteria against which we might get involved in shooting against Iran.
And let's take a look at that from your international relations theorist hat. And it's almost pointless to even ask this, but I feel obligated to do it. Is there any international authority that should Trump use force to make good on this claim right here about the killing peaceful protesters, that he is just or authorized to use lethal force against the regime of Iran?
No. But Trump doesn't pay attention to international law or international norms. He just does what he sees fit. You want to remember that in the Caribbean, he has instructed the U.S. military to attack these boats that we don't even know who's on the boats and what they're doing. And the aim is to kill everybody. And it appears that we've killed over 100 people on boats in the Caribbean, which is, in my opinion, a violation of international law. But again, Trump doesn't care.
Well, and that's got some problems of its own, and I want to look at some of those. We can talk about the moral issues, which probably is enough right there, but before that even, I want to look at some of the policy implications and the ramifications for the interest of America. Now, he mentioned in that soundbite a second ago that he said Iran should make a deal. They didn't make a deal last time, he says, and I bet they wish they had of, and now maybe they still can't. That's his public position anyway. But I want to go back here. This is a report on the 16th of June of last year, to where it said that the United States was in the process of working out some negotiations with the Iranians. Gary, if you can put that headline up there, that full screen, the one from 16. Thank you. It says the Trump team proposes Iran talks this week on a nuclear deal and a ceasefire. So this was the process we were ongoing. 16th of June. Then on the 20th of June, Trump gave an impromptu press conference in front of an airplane. So 4 days later, and before this meeting had taken place but was in the process, he said this.
Does Iran have 2 weeks, or could you strike before that? Are you essentially giving them a 2-week timeline?
I'm giving them a period of time. We're going to see what that period of time is, but I'm giving them a period of time. And I would say 2 weeks would be the maximum.
So I'm giving them a period of time. Well, there was no truth to that. The plans were already engaged at that point. And I think on the 21st in the local time there, or maybe it was in here time, 1 day later or about a day and a half later, we struck. So it looked like we were trying to negotiate with Iran in good faith on the 16th. And we had negotiations going back and forth. Trump said we had 2 weeks on the one hand, and then all of a sudden planes were dropping bombs after that. What does that do to our credibility and his desire now to say that I want Iran to negotiate?
Well, it sends a very clear signal to all of our adversaries that you can't trust the United States. And the Russians have figured this out themselves. The Iranians know it, of course, and the North Koreans know it, and the Chinese know it. You can't trust anything that the United States says. And if you need a more glaring example than this one, it would be hard to find.
Well, there was one other glaring example, and that was on the 9th of September when we were negotiating with Hamas, and they were meeting with our ally Qatar. And then here comes the Israelis and try to assassinate the negotiators and tried to kill them, which obviously is the worst thing you can possibly do. And so you see all these, and of course, this is, going back to 2018 when Trump withdrew unilaterally from the JCPOA that had been negotiated, and he always claimed he was going to negotiate a better deal, never did. So it just looks like we are literally all over the map, and we don't even have any interest in any kind of negotiation. So in light of this, and we're going to look at the Russia-Ukraine war in just a second, but I mean, just kind of take a preview there across the board. What is going to be the relationship or the implications when you're talking about heads of state or negotiating teams in places like Russia?
Well, the fact is you just can't trust the word of any American leader at this point. It was true of Biden as well as it is of Trump, although Trump is a more glaring case. But I don't know what else to say. You just can't trust the United States. And by the way, this gets back to the whole subject of NATO expansion. the great mistake that the Soviets made at the end of the Cold War was not to get in writing, not to get in some legal document that they could point to later on that said NATO wouldn't expand. What the Soviets depended on was America's word. And we, of course, said we would not expand NATO. And then the Clinton administration came along and it expanded NATO. And following in the wake of the Clinton administration, the Bush administration decided to expand NATO into Ukraine and Georgia. And the Russians learned that you have to get it in writing. And even then, it doesn't mean that much because the United States can violate a written agreement. A bit more difficult to violate a written agreement than a verbal agreement, but you can still violate a written agreement. But this is why the Russians today want everything written down. They want legal agreements. They're not going to take Trump's word for it. And given what you have just shown, they have every reason not to trust the Americans.
You know, it's ironic. You talk about what the Russians are doing. Volodymyr Zelensky is doing the same kind of thing in that he's saying he wants security guarantees, but not just something on a piece of paper. He wants something that goes through the United States Congress because he himself doesn't trust anything that the U.S. says. And he's going back to the alleged problems with the 1994 Budapest Memorandum, which I don't know that he's going to actually get anything better than that anyway, or even as good as that. But that does show you, though, that even our friends are saying, yeah, I don't trust what you say. I want something in writing. So that by itself is also a problem. We're about to see why that is in a second. I do want to show you one other thing that goes along with that. This is what the world is seeing. And I kind of wonder what your thoughts are on how this is landing everywhere, because we had Pete Hegseth tweeted out earlier today on an X post, actually. He says it's called peace through strength. After disastrous years of Joe Biden, where America was woke, weak, and in a retreat, he loves to use those alliteration kind of things. President Trump and the Department of War are reestablishing deterrence. We will never back down. He said that in light of a Military Times article, which you see here on the screen. And this thing's called A Year of Strikes, U.S. Military Operations Surge Under Trump. When you start rolling through this, and you can see in the article, it chronicles everything that all these different uses of force that we've had throughout the first year of the Trump administration here. And Gary, if you can just kind of roll through some of that. I mean, you see there's the Somalia on February 1st and counting. There's Iraq. We launched some, then into Yemen again, specifically into Yemen, Iran, as we talked about a second ago, Nigeria, the Caribbean Sea, all those ones you just mentioned. That's a lot of use of force. I don't know of any other country on the planet that actually has done anything close to this. And my question to you is this really demonstrations of peace through strength, or is it undermining peace?
Well, I don't think that this is restoring our deterrence in any meaningful way. I mean, most of these operations were pinpricks or just not successful at all. Just think about the Venezuela case. We've had a giant armada in the Caribbean since August. And we've not used military force in any meaningful way in the Caribbean, despite having all this firepower down there. And it's very clear that Trump wants regime change in Venezuela. And one of the principal reasons he put that armada down there was to get regime change. But he has not used that armada, and there's no evidence that he's going to use it anytime soon, because it's almost impossible to figure out what the strategy is that he could employ to achieve his desired end. So what we've ended up doing is maybe bombing this one dock. Nobody's sure whether we really bombed it. And then we spend a lot of time blowing these boats out of the water in the Caribbean. Is that restoring deterrence? I doubt it. And then we talked about what happened in Nigeria. This is a pinprick at best. The same thing is true with the attacks on Iraq and on Syria. With regard to Iran, that is the one, I would say, major use of force. It was a one-day attack. Trump declared victory, but we're now talking about attacking Iran again because apparently we didn't achieve victory, and the Iranians are in a position where they can rebuild their nuclear capability, rebuild their lost or replace their lost ballistic missiles and so forth and so on. So it's not clear we've deterred Iran in any meaningful way.
Well, and and it can actually be argued that it's had the opposite effect on Iran. Instead of making them capitulate and want to come to negotiations, according to what their president Peveshian said just a few days ago, that they consider themselves almost at war with the West, and because they feel like they're being warred against by them, so they're building up their armada of missiles and missile defense capabilities. And they claim that they have now restored everything that they lost in June, and in fact have gone further beyond that, which would not be a good thing for Israel. So if they want to try to do something here, and now that their offensive missile capacity has been dispersed throughout the country, as some experts have recently told us, that would mean that if you try something new, you may have an even worse outcome. How do you see that?
Well, Danny, just a second here. We've just talked about these 7 minor uses of force. Let's talk about what Trump has done with regard to China, with regard to Russia, and with regard to the Middle East in terms of restoring deterrence, showing how tough the United States is. When Trump came into office, he decided he was going to get tough with the Chinese. And he started by putting very high tariffs on the Chinese. He was forced to back down. He has not been able to play tough with the Chinese. The Chinese have outmaneuvered him in 2025. With regard to the Russians, he said that he was going to shut that war down as soon as he came into office. Did he shut it down? No. What's happening there? We are on the losing side. That doesn't improve deterrence in any meaningful way. So if you look at the Chinese situation and the Russian situation, doesn't look like we've done very well. And going to the Middle East, right, it's quite clear, as I said before, that Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israelis own Trump. He has hardly any maneuver room. This notion that he's created peace in Gaza is laughable. There's no ceasefire, at least from the Israeli perspective. And with regard to Iran, as we've just talked about, we've not solved the Iran problem. We're talking about going back against Iran. So in what sense has Trump been successful on the foreign policy front? Oh, and by the way, he's wrecked relations with India. We had improved relations with India over the past 25 years, but because of the administration's foolish policies, we've poisoned relations with the Modi government. This is a huge blunder. So if you look at the overall record of Trump's foreign policy in 2025, it's hardly impressive at all.